And you had to clap on an odd number. It was not a multiple of 5 or 10. It was not divisible by anything normal. You had to clap on a 7.
It was a prime number of seconds.
Oh, crap. I didn't think about it that way. You have to start doing high-level math as we try to synchronize our thing.
What? Look, first, we can't talk about synchronizing our thing anymore. That's frowned upon.
Wait, really?
I don't know.
I thought the world was... People were supposed to be getting more tolerant, not less.
Yeah.
We can synchronize whatever we want.
Hey, I installed a power tool today.
Oh? Wait a minute.
Remember power tools?
Wait, like an electric
power toy.
Oh, okay. We were talking like a powered drill or something.
No, man, I don't have a drill.
Like a chainsaw or something. Power toys, I am very well acquainted with.
Power toys. I have 2 power toys in use right now.
Yeah.
One of them lets me make frames on my window, on my tall monitor, my big boy over here on the left.
Yeah.
And I can put like 6 different chunks in there, and I can drop windows in there, and it snaps them to the to the size.
That sounds so useful.
It's very good. That one, I can't remember what it's called though, and I can't find it in the taskbar.
It's like fancy something. It's like fancy corners or something like that.
No. That would be too fancy. It's a Microsoft. It's actually a Microsoft Power Toy, like a modern version of the old Power Toys.
Oh, that is it. Fancy zones.
Fancy zones. That is it. Yeah. And then the other thing I installed has a really funny name. I liked it a lot, and it is called Mouse Without Borders.
Oh.
These are both Microsoft tools that were shared.
Mouse Without Borders is made by Microsoft?
Yeah, it's a Microsoft. It's a garage project, I think.
I saw people talking about that thing, and I was like, well, that's made by a dude and is probably trustworthy, probably.
So it's published. It's on Microsoft's download site. It looks like it was made by Microsoft. It might be like a 20% project or something that they're doing in like their free time.
Okay.
But it worked shockingly well. Been using it for about 2 hours.
That sounds like it's an exhaustive analysis.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong? I definitely had a real everything old is new again moment when I saw that the current iteration of Power Toys has a GitHub page. Setting aside the part where Microsoft owns GitHub, but also just like the idea of open source Power Toys, it's like how far we've come, and yet we're still using.
What was the Power Toy? What was the main one? Do you remember what it was called?
Oh man, I feel like we could do a whole episode on old classic Windows Power Toys. Did they start on Windows 95?
95. Oh, I feel like I downloaded a Power Tool for like OSR2 maybe.
Here we go. Power Toys for Windows 95. Cab View, CD Autoplay.
Oh yeah.
Command prompt here. Anyone? Was it Quick Res by any chance?
What was Quick Res? To let you change your resolution quickly?
Allowed users to quickly change the screen resolution. It's right there in the name.
No, I feel like there was one that just like exposed a whole boatload of regedit hacks.
Was it Tweak UI?
It was Tweak UI. That was the money one.
I mean, I'm here on Wikipedia, and Tweak UI on this list is the only one that is linked out to its own page.
That makes sense.
So
the rest of them were kind of one-offs, like one single, like Alton Brown would call the other ones single unit taskers, and Tweak UI was a multitasker.
Hang on, I'm sorry, I need to back up for a second. Did you say Reg Edit?
Yeah, Reg Edit.
Reg?
Registry.
Mr. Reginald Edit?
What did you call it? Reg Edit?
Please call me Reg. Mr. Edit is my father.
I hesitate to ask this. How do you pronounce the CompuServe graphics interchange format?
I don't think we're not ready to have this conversation. But it's totally GIF.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
Welcome. Hello, Brad. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fairly well.
The end of May.
Is it?
Do you know what that means it's time for?
What does that mean?
It means it's time to turn Q's into A's.
Ooh, that's like a meat grinder. You just shove some Q's in the top and turn the crank, and then some like fine...
We're grinding typefaces here. That's exactly right.
Some fine knowledge comes out and some nice ground. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a good crop of questions this month.
Did we? What do we got?
It was no February, but it's pretty good.
They can't all be February.
Look, February is a banger, but May's okay.
A banner month.
What do we got? So we should have talked about this beforehand, but are you reading today or am I reading today? I pulled the questions.
We really had to roll right into this one.
Yeah, it's been busy this week.
It's kind of the thing about working at home. Like, it's sort of always on and never off.
Yeah.
I was doing work stuff at like 10:30 last night.
I roll from streams into podcasts, into getting ready for other podcasts, into projects, into putting a child to bed. And
is it time for us to get personal assistance?
If I could afford a person, if I could afford a personal assistant, I would pay myself more. So that would be great.
It's fair. You can't pay yourself more hours in the day, though.
No, that's true.
Not
but
yet.
I also it's nice to be able to pay the house payment. So
I guess so.
Anyway, do you want to do this console question first? I thought this one was pretty good.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. How about it? Where do these emails come into, Will?
Oh, there's an email address at techpod@content.town. That's techpod@content.town. And people can send their questions there anytime, day, night, weekends, holidays, mornings, evenings, 3 o'clock in the morning. Just send your questions in.
It's true.
We'll read them.
I'm looking at it right now here in this email.
We've started getting PR spam to that address now, too, which is really weird.
I almost pulled one of those in by accident until I actually clicked through. Where is it? Let's see.
The teledildonics one?
No, it's not the interview op teledildonic toys during coronavirus.
I've never gotten a serious teledildonics like PR request in 20 years of doing this until now.
I've had this thought many times on the Bombcast. Is it poor form to mockingly read some of these solicitations we get as if they were emails?
Since our stated policy is to never take advertisements for this show, no.
Well, I don't have to say who said it. Yeah.
Yeah.
While we all try to social distance at this time, our loneliness has highlighted a key factor in human sexuality. It takes 2 to tango. I'm not going to go any.
No, that's enough.
Deeper.
It's about.
I don't think that was. I don't think that. No, that was. Oh, I started to say that was not even the only future of dating and intimacy type email we got.
They just sent it twice.
But then, yes, I just clicked through and realized it's the same person.
Yeah.
Sending the same shit, except with a way less eye-catching address this time, which is exactly how they got me.
What that means is that somewhere in a database, despite never having talked about robot sex on the podcast that I can remember, we have a robot sex teledildonics tag next to our names. So that'll haunt you forever now, Brad. Congratulations.
I mean, how else do you know you've made it than when you're getting unsolicited emails about teledildonics?
Look, I've seen that Futurama episode. I know how this ends.
Yes. All right. Here's the first email from Brian in Seattle, who says, "I miss Windows Phone." That's part of his signature. Like he's just deploying that anytime he writes an email to anybody. It's like, hey, thanks. Look forward to hearing back from you. I miss Windows Phone.
I love this because this is the one good, like, anytime I see somebody send an email that says sent from their iPhone, I either assume that they got a new iPhone that day, or they have never bothered to learn how to not sent with my iPhone, which takes maybe 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And this is a message. This is really good. I like this.
Yeah. He's using it to proselytize a little bit. I always liked customizing that thing as opposed to just disabling it.
I like Windows Phone too.
Put a little pizzazz in your emails. All right. Here we go. When we went from the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 to the Xbox One and PS4, there wasn't immediately or ever backwards and forwards compatibility. Well, in the case of the Xbox One, obviously I got some of that later.
Eventually,
anyway, yes, but I'll move on. With the next one, most if not all games will work across generations. When do you think the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 exclusive games come out? Fall 2021, 2022, even later? I don't know.
So he's asking when they're going to leave the current gen hardware behind, since everything is both forwards and backwards compatible.
Right. I mean, that's more of a business question than a tech question, right? Like, that's really just when they decide that the time is right to kind of cut people off.
I mean, I think it's probably going to be more about, it might actually end up being a tech question. It might be that somebody makes, Spider-Man 2 for the PS5 and it needs that SSD to because of the movement speed for Spider-Man.
Well, definitely, like, developers are going to get to the point where they are probably chafing if they are still having to support old hardware and they want to do more ambitious things. But, like, still at some point there's a guy in a suit somewhere saying, like, no, we've got to sell it on the old box. Like, there's got 80 million of those things out there. You know what I mean? Like they're still going to have to run it by the bean counters and make sure that they can get away with it before they actually.
What is it? Just Dance that still comes out on Wii?
Oh yeah, probably. Just yes.
Yeah,
that sounds right.
Yeah, so I think it'll be after 2022.
Wow.
I think we'll see.
Holy crap, that is.
I mean, I think we'll see games. I mean, so let me rephrase. I think we might see some like downloadable stuff that's exclusive to one or the other platforms.
Sure.
But I would bet that if it's a disc-based release that you can go to Target or Best Buy and pick up a copy of, I bet those will continue to work indefinitely.
That's a good long stretch. But I mean, at some point, like, you're not enjoying the full benefits of the new hardware if you're not designing your game exclusively around the new hardware, right? I
don't know, man. I could go out and I could play Fortnite on a like GTX 960, or I could play it on a GTX 2080 Ti, or I can play it. I can play it on a min spec machine or my computer, and it's the same game.
Well, yeah,
it's just going to run slower and look shittier on the old machine.
Graphics scale across a wide range of capabilities, obviously, but I'm talking more like fundamental design stuff that might involve like, degrees of simulation that they're not doing right now, stuff like that. Or maybe like massively deformable world geometry. Like I'm certainly no game designer or programmer, but
they can just run that stuff on Azure and it'll work great.
Oh yeah, that works. So, it's just the infinite power of the cloud is where all the real computation happens. Like, that was certainly proved out last generation.
I mean, I think like deformable terrain is an interesting question, because a lot of the current game engines don't handle that particularly well.
Right. Like, I don't even know if that's really applicable in this situation. It's just something that popped into my mind as something that might require like a lot more compute than we're throwing at games right now.
I mean, I think what'll happen is rather than degrade the high end experience to work on the low end machines, I think what we'll end up seeing is that people are degrading the low end experience dramatically. So like you'll be in a Turok situation on the older hardware where you're playing on a PS4 and the load times take 6 minutes and there's fog. You're surrounded in a 30-meter circle of fog so that you can't see, so that everything else can LOD down. And,
sure.
And I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong. I love seeing badass games running on new hardware. And like with the but if you look at what's coming with this new machines, the big things are SSDs and ray tracing. Ray tracing can degrade down to be just light maps and stuff like that without a whole lot of hassle.
Yeah.
The SSD is a bigger challenge, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Maybe you just see more of those little canyons. You see more shimmying on the last generation. They just put in a few extra spots where you have to like cram your way through some kind of crevice so they can load more level that you don't have to deal with. Yeah. You're not wrong, actually, when you put it that way. I hadn't thought about it like that, but if anything, historically, hardware makers have shown a lot more willingness to just, like you said, degrade the experience, like just make shitty versions of games for old hardware instead of ripping the Band-Aid off and just saying, okay, these games don't run anymore. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's a time-honored tradition all the way back to arcade days.
Like that, well, right? Yeah, but especially now in this world of like PS4s versus PS4 Pros and stuff like that. Or even like Nintendo had that situation with the 3DS and the new 3DS, where you technically had games that would work on all versions of the hardware, but you didn't really want to play some of those games on the old hardware.
Well, but I mean, it's a situation that doesn't have to be bad. Spider-Man's a great example, because if you play Spider-Man on a PS4 Pro, you get they do cube maps on on a lot of the windows on the skyscrapers and stuff, so you can actually look into the buildings and it's not just shiny glass on the outside. And it ended up being a really lovely effect, but you needed more memory for that to work. On the PS4 stocks, it was just, shiny glass like you've seen on every video game ever. And it's still like, it doesn't detract from the gameplay. It just makes it not look quite as fancy.
Yes.
So
would that every developer paid so much care to all versions of their game.
Well, yeah.
All right. Next email. This comes in from Abil. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Will, you mentioned that your parents have barn Wi-Fi in their rural home.
Yeah.
I have a similar situation where I have a barn about 100 feet from my house router. I can get a tiny signal there at the moment, but nothing that is actually usable. What was your parents' solution? Would a Nest be a good option?
So they have a weird situation because they're on cellular internet at this place. So they have like a 5G, a 4G now, it'll be 5G soon, antenna on a 30-foot telephone pole.
Oh, was that confirmed that it's going to be, they're going to get the 5G upgrade? Like they're going
to get the 5G upgrade. Yeah.
I didn't know it was getting rolled out that fast.
Well, so this isn't, they're not connecting to Verizon. They're using a directional antenna pointed at a tower on a mountain near them.
Okay.
But it just happens to use 4G as the protocol to connect.
I see.
And their provider is rolling out 5G because everybody's working at home now and they don't have enough bandwidth on the nodes to support all the users, and they need it as fast as they possibly can. So they had this pole that just was a pole next to their barn, and they put the antenna on top of the pole because it gave them better line of sight to the mountain with the receiver. And then as part of their ISP's service, they run they'll put a pole up wherever you need it to get the best shot to the tower because they're in a hilly area, and then they run a fiber Ethernet from the pole to the house. And Dad just paid the guy extra money to run another fiber to the barn. He put routers in each place. It was right at the edge of what you can do with the Ethernet. It was like 95 feet or something like that. So they did fiber just because, it has essentially infinite run. In this case, it's not really infinite, but it'll go a long way. And it cost a couple $100 extra, basically. Okay. But your mesh networks are a good bet. If you're at the edge of your Wi-Fi range, you're going to want to run an Ethernet cable between one of the nodes and the distant node, though.
I read this email and I was all excited to jokingly come in here and be like, bury an Ethernet line, but it sounds like that's actually what you need to do.
Well, I mean, the thing is,
are there options for not burying it? Is there any other safe way to run some kind of conduit, or is that pretty much all you can do?
I mean, the nice thing is you don't have to do like a 6-foot deep trench or something like that for Ethernet. If you're not putting it someplace that you're going to be digging, you can just make use a flat edge spade and make like a 4-inch deep trench and just run it down that and then stamp it back down with your feet.
Just bare cable? Maybe this is naive, but I figured it would have to go through some kind of conduit or something. Something about the idea of Ethernet cable coming into direct contact with dirt just seems wrong somehow.
As long as the shielding is safe, it should be fine. You might want to get a different rating. I mean, we always did exterior, so I don't know. Yeah,
just kind of staple it around the baseboard or something.
I'm sure somebody's going to tell me I'm an a-hole. So, but it's worked for them. And the fiber is, as long as you don't break the fiber, is pretty indestructible.
Yeah, it's got a pretty fragile bend radius, right?
The bend radius is like 3 feet on the coil that they have coming out of the ground, I think.
Okay.
And I think the secret of what they're doing is that they don't terminate it on site. So they just have fixed lengths in the truck. So it's not like the guy has to be doing the termination and stuff on the actually when he's on the site, he just has 200 feet of cable and 100 feet of cable and coils up whatever's extra at the end.
Just grabs the pre-made stuff that he needs. Is that good to terminate it on the spot? Is that where you have to do the weird fusing of fiber together and stuff like that?
That seems like dark magic to me. I don't know how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. What's is it 100 foot for pretty much all kinds of Ethernet copper?
Is that
maybe
it's 100 meters.
Is that the universal limit? Is that the warp 10 of Ethernet cable? Just to make this the most nerdy question ever asked.
A standard Ethernet segment is limited to 328 feet or 100 meters in length over a standard gauge Cat5 cable.
Oh, wow. That's a lot farther than I thought.
Yeah. So they probably could have done just standard Ethernet for this.
Sure.
I mean, the other benefit of doing fiber is if water gets into it, it doesn't break it.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Run a cable. Cables are still good. I know a lot of people are pretty anti-cable these days, but
dude, cables rule.
There is no substitute for a hard line.
Just as somebody who's done this in the past and messed it up, look up on the internet how to have a cable leave your house without leaving a hole that's going to let critters and things get into your walls.
That is a consideration I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, and you do want to have a conduit going down into the ground for sure, because rats and stuff chew the cable. Squirrels, rats, all that. Sure. They love the taste of that insulation.
They love the taste of most things. That's true. Let's be fair. Travis from Denver. I know you have many home projects under your belts, but is there one that stands out above the rest? Mine was a platform I created to collect real-time energy usage information from some smart plugs and store the data in a data warehouse. After about 2 years, I had to sunset it after Belkin removed the ability to get this data from their devices, as it relied on UPnP, which has security holes a mile wide. But this project still stands above the rest as my best achievement so far.
Ooh, man, I haven't done anything as cool as that.
Yeah, I will say up front, like watching a lot of the chatter on the Discord, like there are some extremely talented maker types, I should say, in the community, both on the software dev end and the, crafting physical goods end. Like things are being like birthed from nothing there in a way that I'm not capable of, is what I mean,
Well,
like, people are architecting and building things with their hands and their brains.
Not capable of, or haven't gotten to the point that you feel comfortable starting on is two different things.
Not capable of.
I mean, the biggest home project I've done is probably the home automation stuff, in that I've gotten everything working so that you like it. I've said this before. It sounds really goofy. You literally don't have to think about lights in my house anymore. They just turn on and off when you need them without you having to think about it.
You by far have the most elaborate home automation setup I've seen. I haven't been to your, it's been a good while since I've been to your house, but it seems like, you've got just about everything done.
All the lights, all the doors. I haven't done windows because I don't need windows.
Speaking of windows, I just became aware of like Wi-Fi connected motorized blinds recently. If this then that enabled blinds.
So if this then that sucks for home automation though, because it's too laggy.
Okay.
But you can get, like, Lutron makes powered blinds that work with Zigbee, I think. I can't remember. One of the wireless standards. That stuff, like figuring out that stuff has been really fun. It's interesting because as a result of the Wink changeover, which we didn't really talk about much here, but a couple of weeks ago, Wink, which was like one of the smart home hub competitors, said, hey, you've been using our product for free for many years. We're going to charge you $5 a month, or we're going to turn you off, and you have 30 days to move off of our platform if you don't want to do that.
Wow.
And just to be clear, migrating Zigbee and Z-Wave devices off of a hub like that is an incredible pain in the ass. You have to go reset each light bulb manually, all your switches manually, all that stuff. It takes a lot of time.
That's a level of fuck you to your user base that's really bold.
I mean, my assumption is that they don't do something like that if they're not in a absolutely dire business situation.
Sure.
I can't imagine anybody would do that as like, we should juice profits 10% this year.
Right.
But yeah, I saw that and I was like, man, everything I have is based on this smart things thing. And I started looking at alternatives and tested out a couple of different things. And I think I've landed on doing Home Assistant, which I finally got the Siri integration working the other day. So now it's onto Google and Alexa and all the other stuff that's complicated.
If I have 98% Apple Home enabled devices and like one, it's a TP-Link. I don't even know what standard. It's like you use the Casa app, which I don't know what standard that ties into. Anyway, long story short, if like 90% of my stuff just works by default with Apple Home and I have like one or two extra things, is it worth the trouble of something like Home Assistant to get all of those things unified? Or
I don't think so.
Is it way too involved for like one or two extra devices?
It is. Well, man, I could do a whole in a month or two. I'll be ready to do a whole episode on a Home Assistant. It is open sourcey in the way that FreeNAS is, and that you can, if you have enough time, you can do anything you want.
Okay.
But like getting to the point that like it works is sometimes challenging. Sure. And as is often the case, there's like running it on a FreeNAS jail is one level of difficulty that's way higher than, say, plugging in a Raspberry Pi 4 and just putting it on an SD card and using the managed install that all the hard shit's already done for you.
First of all, I could take this email in like 8 different tangential directions right now because there's a bunch of different stuff I want to talk about. But I'm like closer and closer every damn week to getting off of FreeNAS and just slapping Linux on that machine. B, did you see that they announced an 8 gigabyte Raspberry Pi 4 today?
I did.
So there's that.
That seems like a desktop computer at that point, because it has like two monitor outputs and everything, right?
Yeah. C, I wanted to mention that I feel like we should start compiling a list of companies like that Wink thing you mentioned, kind of very explicitly just screwing over their user base. Like, I think that like Sonos is a big one where they like basically said like, hey, if you have a Sonos product older than X,
you got to unplug it or it's going to fuck up your whole system.
Not only are we not going to update in it anymore, but if you keep using it, you're not going to get to use any of your newer stuff.
They backed off on that when people complained.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they said they're going to continue working to figure out a way to gracefully degrade functionality on old hardware without just outright turning it off.
Yes.
Which is the right. I mean, that's what they should do for a $500 piece of hardware, $400 piece of hardware.
Absolutely. Speakers are good for a long time, it turns out.
I mean, there's a reason that Internet of Shit account is active and prescient. Yeah. And like, it's not just smart home stuff and Internet of things. It's like your Apple Watch is a perfect example. Those things, you spend $400 or $500 on a smartwatch, and I would expect it to last at least 10 years because if you buy a $600 watch 40 years ago, it's still going to be working today. But, they've started sunsetting those too. So,
that's Apple for you.
The future.
Sadly.
We should all go analog.
Yes. I guess to answer this question real fast, that goofy encoder setup that we talked about when we discussed streaming stuff last week, like
that's awesome.
It works.
That's not goofy.
Not only, I mean, I guess I had it mostly working as of this time last week, but like it's basically ready to go as far as I can tell. Like,
are you using it in production yet?
No, because I need to do a test stream with live people watching and like make sure it's going to hold up for 2 straight hours and everything. But I've got the end-to-end latency down to 4 seconds. Which, like, I'm not going to complain.
That's like Twitch level.
I could not believe it. I straight up streamed out time.is and like put them side by side, and by extremely scientific method, and eyeballed the clocks on the 2 screens, and like, so I'm pretty proud that I got that going after a lot of trials and tribulations. I guess the other one is like, it's real mundane stuff, like getting something to compile on a platform where it's not super well supported. Like this, I've talked about it a couple times. This home music server, which kind of transparently makes AirPlay devices think that it's iTunes, is what it does.
Yeah.
It's a DAAP server is what it actually is. I forget, what is that, digital audio something protocol? I forget. It's the protocol that the iTunes uses to stream music to AirPlay devices.
Oh, okay.
It's just a little system service, it's a little daemon level version of that I'd leave running on my NAS, but like it was not super easy to get compiled on FreeBSD, and after a bunch of work and learning and stupid mistakes, I got that done, and just stuff like that.
It's funny, you told me about using AirPrint with cups on FreeNAS to print to non-AirPrint compatible servers. And I haven't figured that one out yet. I haven't taken a lot of time with it.
That was tough.
Yeah.
That was like 3 different tutorials across probably a span of like 5 years, comparing them to each other and trying to figure out what had changed and which one was still valid. And like, it involved some Python script somebody had written at one point to generate an AirPrint driver, which I don't know. Can't believe I got that working. That's the kind of thing that you immediately image the thing that the jail lives on as soon as you get it working, so you don't ever have to do it again.
Well, so it's funny, this Home Assistant thing that I've been working on, I've been actually saving links and documenting how I set it up so that when FreeNAS inevitably changes the jail structure or I move to Linux or something like that, I don't have to rebuild the whole thing from scratch.
Yes, that's the smart way to go. All right. How about a next email from Neil in London? I wanted to ask your opinions on the reality of how smart we assume big tech companies to be. They know a lot about us and employ the smartest engineers without doubt, but I wonder if we give them too much credit according to the myths surrounding them. I haven't noticed the ads being served to me getting much more relevant for all the talk around YouTube's algorithms. I have to say that I continually find them to be uniquely terrible. I can't watch a single MMA fight without endlessly having to say that I don't want to see any of Joe Rogan's Goop for Men videos. I can't watch a giant bomb video without the algorithm constantly serving me videos I'm not interested in by people with names like Gamers TV, etc., etc. I'm a native English speaker with a mild Irish accent, and voice recognition continues to be unusable. I resent the fuck out of this, by the way, but that's another story. My phone keyboard continues to get all the same words wrong, etc., etc. Do we give the big tech companies too much credit when in fact they're just a bit shit?
So this keyboard thing is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I don't know about you, but my phone keyboard has gotten progressively worse over the last like 5 years.
It seems like the auto predict specifically,
the type of head prediction.
Yes.
if you don't use the bar that like you start typing and you don't use the bar to select the word, even if you have typed the word perfectly, it often changes it and fucks up my sentences for me, which is maddening.
Also, I mean, you're still on iOS, right? You don't use Android.
Yep, still on iOS.
I have to assume that the default keyboard does not have any kind of like training built into it, right? Because the number of times that it thinks I want a different word, like I would think after like a dozen instances of me typing one thing and it wanting to do something else and me having to manually specify that it would like learn.
Nope.
Apparently not. Like it's bad enough that I assume they just didn't even build that in.
Well, so I think what happened is they started doing prediction based on more than just the immediately preceding word a few years ago. And so then it has to understand and be able to parse English language, or at least make predictive analysis based on statistics and English language. I don't know why it's bad. I would love to know why it's bad. I know that Google has experimented some with machine learning for that type of head prediction. And I think a lot of the examples that Neil specifically gave are because we're in a weird time where machine learning stuff is kind of bad still. And we're learning where it works and where it doesn't. We're trying to apply it in a bunch of weird places like ads and type of head prediction and voice recognition. And some of those things it's really good at, and some of them it's not good at. And like the voice recognition thing is explicitly they haven't trained the models on your specific accent enough, or you have a very specific small regional accent from a region that they don't cover, and as a result, it's going to be bad. So, but at the same time, like you look at the stuff that Facebook is able to do, where they're intentionally. I mean, there's an article in I think the New York Times earlier this week about how they're intentionally making people more divisive. Like they've known that the algorithms they use make political discourse more divisive and push people more toward the extreme edges of the right and the left, especially the right. And they don't see that as a problem.
Cool.
Yeah.
That seems like a very socially responsible company that they have there.
I don't think you mean that, Brad. I think that is, I think you're being facetious.
That impression. What could have tipped you off?
Yeah. So like, it's funny because like stuff that used to be funny, like you send somebody a link. I used to send people links to like 50-gallon drums of lube on Amazon. And then all of those Amazon drop-in ads on every web page on the internet would be Amazon, a link. Hey, do you need more lube? Here's 50 gallons.
Yeah.
Or a 20-pound box of Lucky Charms mushrooms. And like, it's not as funny anymore.
Yeah. Yes. I miss the days when algorithms were just a laughing matter and not deadly serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the stuff works poorly, but at the same time, we should probably be impressed that it works at all, considering where we were like 20 years ago. I mean, I don't know.
I guess, I don't know. It seemed like things were better when people just paid a whole bunch of money for good ads on good sites and weren't trying to algorithmically target precisely, people named Brad that live in the zip code 94103.
Yeah. Dude, why are you dropping my zip code right here on this podcast? You can't do that.
Wait, that's not your zip code.
That's not my zip code.
I gave my zip code. That's my old zip code from when I lived in the city. Yeah, it's a weird. I think here's my takeaway on all this is I don't think for the most part the bad behavior that we associate with tech companies and the narrative that's come up around them in the last 3, 4 years is due to malicious behavior on the most part, especially by the people working at like low level, just making the code.
Right.
I think that we have a level of negligence and maybe just lack of awareness of the impact of the decisions that are made at all levels in these big tech companies that's impacting society and communities and people in both negative and positive ways that we haven't really considered.
Yeah.
And I think that like coming to terms with that is the big challenge for technology companies in general in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. I mean, the buck stops with the leadership, right?
No, it doesn't. Never does anymore.
I guess not. It should. By God.
Yeah. It stops with the board.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes. This one's anonymous, actually.
Ooh.
But it's also completely benign. There's nothing scandalous in here whatsoever. They just they said it through an anonymizer. It's about the Mandalorian LED video wall. What do they call it? The volume that we discussed.
The volume.
God, was that 2 episodes ago now?
Yeah, that seems right.
Mostly just kind of asking if we'd seen it and stuff. But the one thing it has is that article that you talked about.
Yes.
Which I think we thought was in Cinefx. But actually, let me click through just to triple check. Yes, it's actually an American cinematographer piece.
Yes.
And is in fact on the web. It's not behind a paywall. So I haven't read
a link in show notes.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but you did read it though.
I think I read it because of this email. I think I was sitting waiting to record a tested podcast, and I was looking at my email and I was like, "Oh, this looks interesting. I'll read this," and then thought I read it because it was sitting at Adam's shop.
I guess I didn't even look at the date. I should point out this email precedes our Unreal Engine 5 demo episode.
Yes.
So,
but 2 things have come up because of that about the volume. One is that episode 4 of Disney Gallery, the Mandalorian, like the making of Mandalorian show, that's basically Jon Favreau's Dinner for Five, but about the Mandalorian and how they made it, is up, and it goes into I would say shockingly deep technical detail about how it works for a mainstream TV series. And there's a lot of footage of it actually working. You can see it is astounding how they use it to generate lights and reflections and all that stuff. So if you liked the episode where we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, definitely go give it a look. It's on Disney Plus. And if you don't have Disney Plus, read this either way, read this American cinematographer article, because it is fabulous.
It's dense too. It's huge. There's a lot of information in here.
There is a lot, and you can actually see the trackers on the cameras. They show you some shots of the cameras that they're using, so you can see how they're tracking camera movement and all that kind of stuff. You see more examples of where they're shooting the shots. And there's a couple of shots of I can't remember the name of the ship, the Razor Crest, on the volume with the stars in the background. But you get to see the stars moving to mimic the ship movement and get the lighting right on the canopy and on his armor and stuff like that. It's very good.
That's super cool. Once again, I'll say I don't know what it says about me, but the Mandalorian itself was not enough to get me to pop the Disney Plus free trial. But this behind the scenes stuff totally is. I will absolutely check that out. That sounds fascinating.
So there you go.
Yeah. So I guess we'll put the link to that article in the show notes for this week.
Yep.
I guess. Oh, okay.
I think we've come to the end.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
You don't want to talk about PowerShell? Nobody ever wants to talk about PowerShell.
I'm out of time.
Okay, that's fair.
But you know what I do have time for?
What's that?
Thanking our patrons who make the show possible.
Yeah.
As always, if you are one of the 600 and change people who support the show right now, thank you very much. But extra special thanks to our executive and associate producer level patrons. Starting with the executive producer patrons, Andrew Cotton, David Allen, and Jacob Chappell. Thank you all so much.
Yes, absolutely.
And then our associate producers, David Ulian, Graham Banks, Sam Buck, Reek, Ian Bailey, Thomas Shea, Dan Brockman, Jad Rita, still I think a Star Wars character, Paul Roost, and Andrew, no last name. And then there's another Dave Ulian, so I think maybe we have to help Dave get his thing down to just one backing a month. But anyway, thank you all so much for backing the podcast and backing the Patreon and helping us.
We cannot express our gratitude sufficiently. Do you think our producers get personal assistants?
I mean,
they're the producers, so
if they want them, yeah. They're the money people. They probably need personal assistants.
Probably do.
But yeah, thank you all so much. And thanks to everybody who supports the Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/techpod, where you get everybody who backs the Patreon gets access to the TechPod Discord.
Yes.
Which I turned off accidentally last week and then had to turn back on.
I got to learn how permissions work on discrete Discord channels per server.
Yeah.
To figure out how we could make sure that notification got out to people who no longer had access to this Discord.
Yep. That's all fixed now. We won't make that mistake again. I will not engage Patreon support without making it abundantly clear.
Totally Patreon's fault. Just pass the buck.
That was, look, I asked a question that resulted in a chain of events that had some unforeseen consequences. Let's say 3 times.
Yeah.
But it's all working now. And if you are at the $5 or higher level, you get access to our monthly patron exclusive episode. Last month we talked about planning.
Yes.
This month we're going to try something different, I think. So
that's
you'll have to find out what that is. End of the month. Yeah. So thank you all so much, Brad. Always a pleasure, man.
Yes, thank you. Really enjoying this low latency video conferencing we got going on. It's working out pretty well.
Yeah. Hey, shout out to jitsi.org.
Yeah. Big ups to WebRTC.
Yeah, love that business. Even without a direct peer-to-peer connection.
Or are we still we got to open those ports.
Yeah, I looked up the ports today. It's a huge range. It's like 10,000 to 20,000 or something like that. I don't know if I'm going to open that many ports.
That's a gaping hole in your firewall, man. I don't know about that.
But you know what? It's open source. So you can just open up, you can put a Jitsi Meet server on your FreeNAS jail. And yeah, we can just pipe a hole.
It's right here.
Kind of open a port, Chloe.
It's like 5 feet away from me.
There you go. That's like 5 feet times 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second divided by 3 meters per 1 foot is it's gonna be low latency. It'll be fine.
Yes. Nanoseconds.
Thanks for listening, everybody. See y'all next week.